Welcome to the inaugural Ramshill Radio election special. The teams will now introduce themselves.
I'm Harry Burton, representing the Conservative Party.
I'm Alan Walton-Sill, representing the Labour Party.
I'm Tim Naylor, representing the Green Party.
I'm Nick Taylor, representing the Liberal Democrats.
And I'm Matt Burdekin, and I'm representing UKIP.
Your hosts today are Harry Mackay
and Alex Morgan-Grenville.
On with the questions. Harry, representing the Conservative Party, how do you, the Tories, think you can persuade the EU to get enough of the UK vote to stay in if your referendum does come about? How do you think you can persuade the UK to stay in?
So the UK is a net contributor to Europe, which means we pay more money than we receive back in subsidies. This makes us important to Europe's future, meaning that we believe we will be able to get a renegotiation that benefits Britain. Being part of the European Union means we have trade links with Europe. This helps small businesses, large businesses, everyone benefits from being part of Europe. And we believe we just need to make sure people are aware of how much they actually benefit from Europe, and people will see reason and vote in.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Nick. Nick Clegg promised not to introduce tuition fees, and then not only did he not block them, but he voted to take them from £3,000 to £9,000. Can you defend this?
Okay, so the thing with tuition fees is, we know we shouldn't have promised them, but we're not making any excuses here. But the Conservatives and Labour voted for, but the Lib Dems had to compromise to preserve the longevity of the coalition, which has led to economic recovery and 1.75 million more people employed. And the fees effects have also been exaggerated. Graduates won't have to pay tuition fees until they're earning $26,000 after completing university. So again, these have been exaggerated. Whilst due to we got forced into a corner with this, many people argue, and this means that we've preserved the longevity of the coalition, which has led to economic successes.
Thank you. Right, Ali. In 2012, the Labour Party received 19 million in donations from trade unions. How do you feel to claims that your party is merely a puppet?
Personally, I believe that the links with trade unions makes the Labour Party the most democratic party, because we know that we've got the most honest money in politics, unlike the Conservative Party, who are largely backed by individual donors. The trade unions represent the working people, so the Labour Party represents the majority of the population, unlike the Conservatives, who are largely supported by strong backing of individuals.
Thank you very much. Harry, if you would like to scrutinise that answer.
Indeed. So you may not be aware, but the Labour trade union funding is not voluntary from members of trade unions. In fact, everyone who is a part of a trade union is automatically signed up without their consent to pay money to the Labour Party. Without this, it is estimated that the Labour Party would only get, rather than £18 million a year, less than 500,000. I would ask how you think this is democratic in any way, that people are forced to support your party.
Talking about undemocratic stuff, I believe that the massive tax cuts given by the Conservatives is undemocratic. The PwC announced this morning that there were industrial scale tax cuts given by the Conservative government. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry, we're going to have to move on there.
We're going to introduce a bit of trivia now. Can anybody tell me what the Church of the Militant Elvis Party's main policy is?
No.
Is that the one with the bus passes?
Indeed it is.
Perfect.
Bus passes.
5 points to Harry.
Harry Burton gets 5 trivia points. Right, and back onto the debate. Tim, Green Party. The Green Party suggests they want to get rid of Trident, partially demilitarise the army, and decriminalise membership of extremist groups. Where terrorism is rife, can you really justify these choices and say that the country is still safe?
Well, Trident and demilitarisation is on the fact that we do not face any short-term threat of invasion from anywhere in the world. A lot of the countries that have a high defence budget like us are allies of us, and we face no threat from them. In terms of Trident, there's £5 billion a year paid into the scheme. That's a third of the deficit which we build up annually. over the 20-year course of Trident, you could, with £100 billion, create 150,000 new nurses, tuition fees for 4 million students, 1.5 million affordable homes, 15 million normal homes and 2 million jobs. And that's where we think this money should be spent rather than on nuclear warheads.
Great, thank you. Nick, would you like to respond to that?
But with Trident gone, do you still don't think our international kind of security and our reputation will be severely undermined? People see us with no nuclear weapons, whilst our allies, such as the USA, possess a large armament. And do you think our international prestige will be reduced because of this?
Potentially, but I think that not our short term, but the economy and the people in which we are trying to help and represent in our nation come before our political stance across the globe. We need to look after what's at home, sort out the economy. We could do that by scrapping Trident, and then once that's sorted, go back and create nuclear warheads. That's still what we think we should do.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Nick. Matt,
Yeah.
regarding UKIP, your manifesto says that you want to cut the foreign aid budget by £9 billion. Would this make our country better or worse?
I believe this would make it better because the foreign aid that we're currently supplying is a lot of it is to unneeded areas right now, and we're planning to focus our foreign aid budget on the places that really need it, the places with preventable diseases and places that need clean water, and we're just really trying to support countries that really need the money and reducing the foreign aid budget in places that really don't need it and can support themselves now.
Thank you very much. A second trivia question. Now, there's been a lot of contest regarding our left-wing parties, but who can tell me how many registered UK parties have the word communist in their name?
4.
The answer, Ali, is 10. Unfortunately, no trivia points there.
10. Harry, another question for the Conservative Party. There's been many claims recently that the Conservatives are the nasty party. Have you done enough to shake this off?
This is a regular claim against the Conservative Party, levied normally because the Conservative Party isn't afraid to do what is necessary for the long-term benefit of the country. Regarding the accusations, many of you may not be aware, but the Conservative Party is actually advocating tax cuts for 27 million people. It's lifting the 3 million of the lowest earners out of tax altogether, and tax cuts for another 24 million. Further, our benefit scheme means that those on low-income wages, rather than being out of work completely, are supported by the government. So don't lose their skills and become yet another lost generation under Labour.
Thank you, Harry. Ali, would you like to respond to that?
Can I just ask whether that includes the welfare cuts and the bedroom tax affecting a large amount of disabled people in Britain who are just left there struggling to basically to survive?
So this, firstly on the spare room subsidy, why should individuals, and it's only a very small minority of disabled individuals that it affects mainly though,
600,000.
it's to do with those just on housing benefit, no disabilities at all, who are being paid, who are receiving more money than they should to have a nicer house than many of their hard-working neighbours. And we don't believe that to be right.
Thank you, Harry. Tim, would you like to contest?
You said the Conservative Party is willing to do what's necessary for the long run, but then why does David Cameron refuse to face the problem of climate change, and in his September speech to the Conservative Party conference didn't mention it once?
So the Conservative Party believe that the environment, whilst important, can only be protected if we have a stable and secure economy to base this off. And that is what the Conservative Party is achieving. We are cutting the deficit, bringing economic security and stability to both the country and to the individual.
Thank you, Harry. Nick, you want to reform the House of Lords and have an elected second chamber. Whilst this is democratic, is it really an improvement to our democracy?
Okay, let me firstly start by saying in the Conservatives' 2010 manifesto, they stated that they would bring about partial reforms at House of Lords. This was subsequently blocked by the Conservatives following a vote in 2012. And our main arguments for elective House of Lords are that yes, it is more democratic and legitimate, and the people have a right to vote for people in the House of Lords who are making key decisions which will affect their future. While additionally to that, it will also counterbalance the Commons and increase accountability, which surely must mean there will be a fairer society in Britain, which is what we all want.
Thank you. Harry, I believe you have a...
So people do not need representation in the Lords. Their political representation comes from their voting in the Commons. What the Lords does is provide representation for specific areas of society. Hereditary peers are now a thing of the past. It's life peers, those appointed for their achievements, who are able to bring specialised scrutiny and expertise onto government policies. An elected House of Lords, all that would mean is you have career politicians taking the next step in their journey, rather than those who really should be looking at policies in detail.
Thank you.
Right, more trivia. According to the Monster Raving Loonies Party's Manifesto, how do they plan on cutting our national debt?
By winning the lottery.
Any slightly better ideas? Okay.
Sell Scotland.
Something wacky.
Almost.
Not far wrong.
Well, actually, they want to sell our castles back to the French.
Under a programme called the Heritage Refund.
Talking about selling national services, can we just talk about the health service, please?
Yeah.
Feel free if you'd like to ask a question.
I'd like to ask Conservative Party Representative Harry what he thinks about the privatisation and the idea that the health service will be made for profits, not for the patients themselves, and that the Labour Party actually believes in cutting the waiting times so that patients will be able to get GP within the 48 hours.
Thank you so much for bringing this up. Firstly, NHS privatisation went from 0% to 5% under, and you'll never guess this, the Labour Party. Conversely, under the coalition, privatisation has increased from, I think, 5% to 6.5%. You'll all note where the major change came there. Secondly, however, coalition privatisation isn't to do with making profit, it's increasing the efficiency of the NHS. As it stands, the NHS gets more money, and because of the nationalised system, it's for the people that work for it, not for the individuals. Not for the public themselves. A privatised and efficient NHS doesn't mean that people have to pay for it. That's a complete fallacy. It means that the NHS is more efficient and you get more value for your money, better protection for the country as a whole.
Thank you, Harry. Matt, UKIP. Considering we have some of the best and most accessible medical care in the world, UKIP want to ban the immigration of people with HIV and TB. Is this fair?
Well, I think it is fair, and I'm just going to state that we don't ban immigration altogether. We just support the influx of people that are highly skilled, and we don't support the influx of people that do not that have life-threatening diseases like HIV and TB. We believe they can be a risk to the British population, and we want the country to be full of healthy British people that are ready to help our country progress. And we don't believe that by letting people with life-threatening diseases into our country, that will help support our cause.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Tim, the Green Party. You wish to increase or reinstate nationalisation of institutions like the railways. How would this benefit the public?
Well, recently the prices of rail fees have been increasing above inflation, and this causes the amount of people available to use the public transport system reducing, meaning more people are going to use their cars, more people are going to contribute to climate change and all this kind of stuff. 68% of the public say that energy companies and railways and all these kind of things should be run by the government because they can put forward a price and a system which works to benefit everyone rather than running it for competition and personal gain.
Thank you. Harry?
So, nationalisation of companies, inefficiency and non-competitiveness further, nationalisation, leads to inefficiency, non-competitiveness.
Tim, I believe you had a response.
The statement of inefficiency, that's only been under the Conservative and Labour of the past however long. This is because you focus on what you need to achieve by taking into account what people who are lobbying you are saying and all this kind of stuff, whereas the Greens were a party for the people. We're not going to be inconsistent, we're not going to do this kind of stuff, we're going to run it for the people in the way it needs to be run for the people.
I'm sorry, we must move on. Ali, your party removed all restrictions on immigration. Can you be trusted with the borders once again?
Well, it's going to be a relaxation on the immigration border control, and it will be to allow the country to remain diverse like it is today. We don't believe that shutting the borders will make the United Kingdom immensely better.
Matt, you had a response.
So relaxation on our country's borders. So do you support that that terrorists will come into our country and people that just believe to take our British population's highly skilled jobs, which could be taken up by British people? Do you believe that? Carry on.
Of course we don't want terrorists in our country. What we want is to encourage people to go where they wish. If we increase immigration just for, let's say, the average Polish worker or something, I don't know, it will be a low-skilled job. And at the moment, the UK economy is service sector based. That means that we'll be all going into tertiary and quaternary jobs. It's like university. People who go to university don't come out and go into low-skilled jobs. If you're saying that people will come over here and take all of our high-skilled jobs, I highly doubt that.
Thank you, Ali.
Okay, one little bit more trivia now. Last question. How is ex-England footballer Sol Campbell planning on entering the political sphere by 2020?
Is it something to do with religion?
Pressure groups?
Incorrect.
He wants to join the Tory party and is aiming for London mayor.
How do you feel about that, Harry?
I must confess I wasn't aware about it. I'm not a particularly great fan of football, so I'm going to withhold comment on that.
Understood. Nick, regarding the Lib Dems, your party voted down the border commission damages or changes that would have made constituency boundaries fairer, reducing the bias for all parties. How do you justify that?
Firstly, can I clearly state that in our coalition, the Tories as well as us have not won agreements, and as part of a partnership, we therefore have a perfectly reasonable right to turn down and not honour an agreement that we made. Which Tories have done this very occasionally, and we also have this right to do this.
Okay, thank you. Harry?
So it's one thing breaking minor agreements within the coalition, but it's another denying people the democratic right to have their vote count equally. The current state of boundary commission means that Labour has a 5% advantage over other parties. Lib Dems, perfectly aware of this, tried to use this as a bargaining chip and to get some of their minor policies through. Conservatives obviously couldn't agree to this, and as such, Lib Dems decided to remove people's democratic rights.
Harry, do you not think it's undemocratic for people not to have a say in voting in the House of Lords, which your party put in your 2010 manifesto and did not agree to?
I don't think the role of the House of Lords is to provide political representation. It's to provide representation for areas of society and areas of business, to provide scrutiny over expert scrutiny over various elements of Parliament policy, which is what the Lords fulfils as it does now.
Thank you, Harry. Tim, a final question on the Greens. With the UK agricultural industry employing 1.4% of the UK's labour force alone, can you defend rolling back meat production with the obvious job losses it will incur?
This is in order to try and create a society which is consuming food which isn't going to amount to huge prices for things like the NHS and that kind of stuff, where the cost of production is outweighed hugely by the cost of rectifying the problems which it creates. By 2020 there's going to be a quarter of the population or more obese, and these are things that we need to start facing now, not when it's too late.
Thank you, Tim. Harry?
So you want to end production, meaning that you have to pay more people on benefits. So yes, you might save a little bit of money on the NHS, but that money is made up for far and above on the excess of welfare payments. Also, you were taking away people's livelihoods, their jobs.
Arguably, on that point, can you justify past Tory actions, for example, Maggie Thatcher cutting the mining industry off?
So the mining industry is a very good example of an industry, unlike the agricultural industry, that was not at all profitable and that required billions of pounds of taxpayer money, the average person, you and I, our parents, supporting that industry. It was very similar to, I suppose, almost welfare, in that the people aren't producing anything for the country, it's just they're being fed money into a black hole of nothingness.
Thank you, Harry.
Tim, if you'd like to
What I was
contest.
going to say is that the money that would be spent hypothetically on the benefits paid for the people who lose jobs from scrapping the meat industry would be less than the amount currently paid to counteract the problems that are caused by obesity, and the money that's the difference of that could be used to create jobs and opportunities for the people who lose out from the destruction or the reduction of the meat industry.
Thank you. Moving on.
Ali, Labour. Why was the only business leader that Ed Balls could recently name in an interview that supports Labour the notorious former chief executive of EDS, Bill
Thomas, yes. I think this incident's been blown largely out of proportion. I think the business critics of Labour this week also have been, such as Tesco and Boots, which all are Conservative backers. I think...
Continue, if you'd like to.
It is hand up.
Harry,
Right.
contest.
So, firstly, it was not Bill Thomas, it was Bill someone that Mr. Balls remembered in his interview.
That's his name.
Yes, but as it was Bill someone was all that Mr. Balls could recall. But this demonstrates very clearly how businesses, those that drive the economy, believe in the Conservative long-term economic plan. It removes completely all of Labour's economic credibility and demonstrates who you should vote for in 2015.
Tim, if you'd like to contest.
Those who drive the Conservative Party, as much as they agree with the Conservatives' long-term economic plan, they also hugely benefit from the Conservatives' long-term economic plan.
Thank you. And Ali, I believe you had a...
Well, further, an example of Tim's point is Rupert Murdoch. But, so I've completely forgotten what you were saying. Sorry, what did you say
Yeah.
again?
No, sorry, my point of reply to business leaders do benefit from Conservative long-term economic plan, and that is because the Conservatives' economic plan benefits everyone and creates an environment in which business can flourish and therefore standards of living in the country rise.
Saying that, only the businesses that support the Tory party will flourish. Ed Balls apologised to Bill Thomas this week, and Bill Thomas showed support from the small businesses for Labour, not for the Conservative Party.
Harry, this is our final comment.
Bill Thomas, just to be clear, everyone, is a member of the Labour Party. His comments, therefore, must be taken with a pinch of salt.
Thank you very much to all our representatives, Matt, Nick, Tim, Ali and Harry. And thank you, listeners. This has been our inaugural edition of Ramshill Radio.
Go Green.